Good evening, everyone. It's Wednesday night again, and that means it's time for the Writer's Room. I'm your co-host, Kat Rocha, the night editor, and with me, as always, is...
J. Ishiro Finney, author and alien in a human suit.
And we have two people on the panel this evening. Panel, please introduce yourselves.
Waltz Bloodthorn, I write Behold Humanity / First Contact. Been around and seen a lot of things. Also notorious midget smuggler.
William Hastings, I write YA fantasy and supernatural wrestling exorcism.
And I'd like to say that it's the good kind of YA fantasy, the way it was intended, not the stuff that we currently get today.
My name is Wicker Basket. I'm clumsy except for in all forms of physical combat. Also, I'm a vampire.
Oh,
Jeez.
oh, Jesus.
So tonight's topic is one that we've been asked before. This was brought up by Wolf 10 Media, in fact, our buddy Wolf. And he wanted to ask about writing from the perspective of post-traumatic stress and how to do that. He asked me, and I decided it should be more than just a personal email to do it as a show. And the reason he asked me is that I've been dealing with post-traumatic stress for about 30 years. 2 weeks after graduating from high school, I was caught in, I guess you'd call it a random shooting.
I would.
But I mean, basically the way that it happened was we were hanging out, a bunch of teenagers. We'd gone to the mall. We were just fucking around. We were headed to Denny's because a friend of mine wanted to demand his free meal.
It was his birthday.
Yeah. As you would do back then. And at one point, we just noticed this guy was following us. It was a Jeep Cherokee, and it just kept following and following. And we just assumed, okay, maybe something happened on the road. Maybe he got pissed off. Maybe we cut him off. We didn't know it. Who knows? And we thought this guy just wanted to get out and yell or start a fight. He followed us all the way back to a neighborhood. I mean, he would not stop. And at one point, he finally just crashed into us, ran us off the road, jumped out of his Jeep, whipped out a 9mm and screamed, "I've got a gun. I'm killing you, motherfuckers," and opened fire. And the thing that got me is it was like that thing where they say when the shooting starts, time speeds up and slows down at the same time. Yes. And the slowing down part is the two things I will never forget is us trying to drive away, whipping past the barrel of his gun, looking down the barrel of his gun, and then seeing over the guy's shoulder that he had his kids in the car. And they're staring out the window, freaking the fuck out as daddy waves a gun at someone.
So he was a nut.
Yeah. He was just having a bad month, and he decided he was going to take it out on someone. Apparently there was some story about his father died recently, and he was mad about it. But yeah, so he's going to take another life, really? So we're driving away, speeding away as fast as we can, and this guy pulls off 4 shots. One hit the driver's side mirror, one hit the driver's side tire, one missed, and one hit the trunk. And the trunk was full of gardening equipment because my friend worked at a golf course and did the gardening. So it went through all these hoses. Basically, all this gardening gear got just shredded. Through the back seat, and it broke my floater rib and got lodged in my intestines, the bullet. The only reason it got there was because it was copper jacketed. It wasn't lead. From there, we were trying to drive away. I was screaming, "Take me to the hospital." I could get into the whole experience of that moment you realize you're going to die. But I've told that story before, so I don't think that's needed. Or do you?
You've told it before, but maybe it'll come up later in the program.
Okay, well, that horrible realization that you're going to die and you've got about maybe 5 minutes at best before everything ends. The horrible freak out reaction of that, screaming, crying, and then just going absolutely fucking cold. Where just emotion gone. And at some point, I guess that survival instinct kicked in, and I decided I was going to live, damn it, and I wasn't going to die. Realizing that the back tire was flat, the driver starts crying. My friend says, "Oh my God, we can't make it. I don't think we can make it." And at a split second, I said, "Go to this guy's house," which was literally a block away, a friend of ours. And we broke into his house, and I called 911. And from there, I was taken to the hospital, rushed into surgery. Apparently, in a ride in the ambulance, I have no memory of this, but apparently I screamed a lot as they jabbed me with just about every vaccination or allergy injection beforehand to prep me. I do know that I don't like needles anymore, or they terrify me now, but yeah, apparently getting all those injections on the way in was pretty terrible. Get to the hospital, I'm rushed into surgery. In the emergency room, because of my age and because of where we lived, which was Riverside County, they thought this was a gangland thing, and the emergency room people were just fucking with me. Yeah, you're throwing gang signs on the wrong turf, huh? Wearing the wrong colors. You tried to sell on someone's corner, and they were so fucking sarcastic. But at this point, I didn't care about anything. I just wanted to live. So who gives a shit? They cut my clothes off of me, which I wasn't too happy about. Yeah, that's my Cure t-shirt, you motherfucker.
I thought it was a Frontline shirt.
Oh, maybe it was. Maybe it was the Frontline shirt. I don't remember what shirt I was wearing. No, I do remember. It was a Skinny Puppy shirt.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, they rolled me in. I didn't feel any more fear or concern until right before being rolled into surgery, and they're hitting me with the drugs to knock me out, and everything just time stopped. Supposedly I woke up with a table. I don't remember that. And the next thing I knew, I was in the worst fucking pain I had ever felt. And it was from the inside out. And it was like this weird semi-burning, aching sensation, extreme weakness to the point that I couldn't really move my body. I was so weak. The hole on my back couldn't be stitched up, so I had just this huge pack of bandages on it. And there's a certain kind of pain, and I bet Raltz knows about this, where you are so, just beaten down, your body's so worn out, so ragged, so used, and feeble that it's literally demoralizing. That's the only way I could put it. It was absolutely, utterly demoralizing. And more than pain, it was the sadness that came with that. And I'm not sure I can really quite put that to words, the feelings that came with that. But I got through the night. I had a hit of morphine, which let me sleep for a couple hours, and then I was puking it. And then it was a week in the hospital, and it was just kind of that slow week in the hospital, then being bedridden at home for about another few weeks. But when I came out of it, I felt fine. When I got home, I figured, hey, I'm fucking bulletproof, motherfucker. I survived death. I'm a teenager, and I survived death. I'm a badass. But that stayed for about two years. 2 years, I was absolutely fine. Probably having an excellent girlfriend helped, but that when that went away, and then other things in my life happened, and I moved up to San Francisco for college there, and then it was just one long, slow decline into insanity. And I can tell you, San Francisco back then, and it's probably worse now, or it is worse now, is a shitty city to be in if you're mentally ill or going into a bad state, because all they do is feed off it and encourage it. And if you've got any delusions, they're going to go with you and encourage you and tell you they're real because, hey, man, you're seeing spirits. What I wouldn't have given for at least one person, including family members, to say, no, you're not psychic. You're losing your mind. But no, they thought it was so great. You found spirituality. You're special. It's like, look, God damn it, I'm the one that's broken right now. You guys should be pulling your fucking weight.
Shouldn't
Not
laugh,
making it
but
worse.
I can't. But
No,
I
you
can't.
go ahead and laugh. It's fine. But indulging that made me even worse. And I spiraled into a madness of superstition, mysticism, conspiracy, horrible hallucinations. That's where all the alien and the human stews comes from. I did a show on that already about those experiences.
Well, I know when we first started dating, you said, okay, you want to understand me? Watch Pi.
Yeah. The film Pi actually had the best portrayal of the episodes I'd have. If you're familiar with that, where, he starts screaming and hunching over and banging his head on the wall and collapsing and just holding his head screaming. And there is some sort of mental pain to it. It isn't just physical. There's some sort of pain that's on a more cognitive level. It's thought that hurts. And Kat watched it happen a number of times. So that was my experience. And really, my crawl towards sanity again didn't start until I had that moment when I pieced together this entire elaborate world that I had built up and came back to my initial assumptions wrong. And everything built on that inverted pyramid fell apart. And then it was just a crawl back to insanity from there. And that took about 8 years to become functional. Okay. And I do mean functional. I obsessed about cataclysmic things. I can tell you all about fucking meteor impacts and solar flare, all that shit. And you know what? Most of it's bullshit, but that's not this episode. Again, needing to realize over and over and over again that I'm attaching my feelings to these gigantic world-shaking events because I could not face the simple truth. And this is something that's going to really, suddenly you're going to understand why I hate SJWs and all this current mental illness craze so much. And this is before the term was even used, by the way. I came to the realization, I said to myself, there's no safe space. It was learning to accept that there was nowhere in the world or in life that was safe. That even something as innocent as a drive to Denny's could get you killed. That some nut might jump out of a car and put a bullet in you. And that was the thing that I had to come to terms with. The other thing was, and this was a much longer thing, it took much longer to comprehend and deal with. And, love him or hate him, I know people are mixed. I got to give Jordan Peterson credit. He gave me the vocabulary to explain what I was dealing with. From someone who of no faith, I needed a vocabulary and a lexicon to describe me coming to terms that evil is real. And that was much harder. But once I did accept, there are people who are really evil and there are things that are really evil, was the other puzzle piece that allowed me to really get my shit together. As for how that appeared in my writing, I will save that for after our other two guests tell their part.
Who would like to go next?
You know what? Why don't you go ahead, because I'm going to want to sit out on the back porch and have a cigarette.
Okay, I'm sorry.
William?
Yeah, sure. Where do you want me to start exactly?
Talk about your own experience as much as you want to, and how that how that's worked into or influenced your writing.
Okay. Well, I used to work in a bad school district where most of the students had or were currently suffering some kind of trauma or abuse, and as somebody who had experienced similar things in the past, it was very jarring to me, and it became something I wanted to write about, and that's where my story Vagabond Legacy comes from, which is this fantasy series that I'm writing, where all four of the protagonists uh, have each experienced some form of trauma, whether it be physical, mental, sexual, psychological, anything. Um, the story is about them processing through it and rebuilding their personalities, which is what I always really hoped that these students I was working with could do someday.
Wow. And I know you had said before that you write YA, and again, I know this from having read the book, but you wrote this. You wrote the Vagabond series specifically for those young people that you worked with that were dealing with this stuff. Is
Yeah,
that
and
correct?
not just the young people I work with too. The whole generation of fatherless, antidepressant riddled, um, this the youth of today is so embattled with mental illness, and I feel like there wasn't uh, a really clear voice in YA that was okay. This is the story about how to live with that and rebuild.
Is it to survive?
Sorry.
Your aim was to help them to survive.
Yeah, I think so. Um, I've known a lot of people who've struggled with trauma and mental illness over the course of my life, and some of them have not survived. And um, it's I'm just kind of doing what I'm able to do to tell those stories.
All right, I'm on the back porch, so.
Okay.
All right. Well, mine is. I mean, you know the rough side of town on the other side of the tracks.
Mm-hmm.
You know how there's a set of tracks past that everybody stole the metal and the wood, and then there's the trailer park on the other side of that next to the junkyard.
Yeah.
That's where I started,
Oh
and then
shit.
I ended up on a farm for a period of time, and that was enjoyable because there was no running water in the house and no electricity in the house. And then I ended up back with my family, and that just got worse. And when I was 14, I got in a fight with my father, and I left. And I was lucky I had a job. I was working in a slaughterhouse. My boss rented me a single wide trailer with that leaked in two places, and that's where I lived until I signed up for the military and left. I lived in places where, looking out your back window at 10 o'clock in the morning, you would see somebody shooting up in their backyard.
Oh jeez.
Merced, Modesto, Spokane, Seattle. Lovely places.
Oh
And,
yeah. I've been to a couple of those places.
I mean, so going to the military, I was actually safer for a long time. I was getting 3 meals a day. Always had a good place to sleep, even if it was in a ditch. I had friends, and most of all, I had medical care. Well, it was the Cold War, and back then the Army did not give a fuck about you. Okay, they pretty much made a plain. We don't care about you. You're disposable. As a matter of fact, you were taught you were part of acceptable losses. As long as the mission is accomplished, acceptable losses. And, it permeated everything. So you had this kind of weird nihilism. We call it victorious nihilism,
Mm-hmm.
If we accomplished the mission and died, well, fuck you. We still did what we were supposed to do. I worked with some pretty nasty stuff. Mostly it was ammunition. I worked with ammunition, but I worked with a full breadth, and I worked on a NATO site, which meant we had NATO weaponry, and that was fun. And back then, they didn't give a damn about the tools. The banding stretchers we had, which banding is an inch thick strip of high tensile steel that's about an eighth of an inch thick, and you stretch it around the pallets and you put it in the stretcher and you crank it down until it increases the tightness until it's biting into the wood. Once in a while, those things would give out and you'd have this sharp piece of steel whipping out, and it's always going to find somebody. I mean, you catch it in the chest, you catch it in the side. If you were lucky, that's why you wore your flak vest. Is so, we got used to wearing our flak vests in peacetime, because if this thing came loose, I saw dude lose an eye. I've got a scar on my arm where it went most of the way through my bicep. And that was just par for the course. The medic would stitch you up, and, if the bleeding stopped in time, they'd stitch you up, go back to work. And I mean, other people are like, oh, that would be something you get a profile for. Well, maybe in the sissy army, but not the one I'm in. I was deployed to Panama. A lot of people don't know that much about Panama. I can tell you one thing. The Panamanian troops were some tough little bastards. And 2 weeks prior to that, they were training us. As a matter of fact, the lieutenant 2 weeks prior had been at airborne school in Panama. Was it either jungle warfare or airborne? But 2 weeks prior, he'd been training with these guys that now were fighting. And we rolled into Panama City. I can still remember the way everything was burning, and it was dead silence, except you could hear crying and screaming and gunfire in the distance, and the buildings were on fire on either side of us. And we got to watch up high, watch down low. And that stacked in. I have weird dreams sometimes about that I'm going along, but the fire's out and I can't hear anything, and the smoke's so thick I can't see. And I turn to say something to my buddy, and he's not there. And it suddenly dawns on me that I'm the only one left alive in the world. Oh. And I usually wake up from that one clawing at the wall. And then I deployed to a couple other places. They don't have names. Nobody cares about them. They didn't make the news. Shitty places, shitty people. One of the things I was deployed for was pretty bad. About a week after we got there, the locals decided they were tired of the French soldiers running child prostitution rings and start shooting at everybody.
Oh,
that was
geez.
fun. That was fun. Fight your way to the airport. Then there was Desert Storm, and that's where I received one of my major injuries. There was some stuff going on. I'd been hit once. Doesn't count because they're like, oh, it wasn't enemy contact. Well, who the fuck was shooting at us? The Marines? And they're like, well, it's only you guys telling the story, and you didn't have an officer with you. Oh, fuck you and your medals. Okay, just fix my goddamn arm. And that one, it was weird. It hit me, and it dug this furrow in that you could set your finger in. And the medic just stitched it up. I remember I was so goddamn mad that who in the fuck did they think they were? And then I ended up, I remember the events leading up to it, but I don't remember what happened. And the next thing I know, the ringing is going out of my ear and I'm staring at the sky. And the pain is so intense, it's not actually pain anymore. It's just this swollen, tight, tingly feeling. And the back of your skull burns. And at the time, I didn't realize, part of my skull was open to air.
Jesus.
I was coughing up blood. I had a compromised lung. I had a broken sternum. I had separated collarbones on both sides, and I had a piece of steel as large as an inhaler cartridge lodged in the top of the bone of my arm, and it cracked it lengthwise, blown all the supporting structure apart, and I was just losing a lot of blood. And I remember the medic, she ran up and she looked down and she put her hand over my mouth and nose and then went, oh, thank God. And then just started to work. She said, I was just staring off. I talked to her later. She said, I was just staring. Wasn't blinking, nothing, just staring. Because all I was doing was following my training. The only thing I couldn't scream, I couldn't talk. All I could do was breathe. So I just concentrated on breathing, just pulling air in. And I remember it was bubbling. It wasn't in my throat. It was like down past my throat. It was bubbling like right below my Adam's apple. I could feel it bubble. And I remember thinking, I'm going to lay here and fucking drown. I'm going to fucking drown. in the middle of the goddamn desert. And, she shoved the tube up my nose because my jaw was compromised. It fractured my jaw in 3 places, and it fractured my upper jaw in 2. And my eye was a wreck. And that wasn't the bad part, though. That's not what I have the nightmares about. The medevac out, I don't have nightmares about that. That was just weird. Because by that time, she shot me up with enough morphine I could have sailed home. Because she was like, I know he hurts. What we got, and she just shot me up. And she's like, don't you fucking die. Just keep breathing. And I got there, and they pulled me off of the helicopter, and they ran me in. And they were going down the line, and they're like, we need to take this one right now. And they hooked up an IV. And I remember it was a Hispanic guy leans over and goes, see you on the other side, champ. And I woke up in this hospital room. It's got 6 beds, and I'm in the middle of my side. If you're facing there, would be on the right. And everybody in there is fucking mangled. We've got a guy who lost his legs to white phosphorus. We've got another guy burned over 40% of his body. And we've got another guy with a mere damage to mine, except for his face was okay. I could talk kind of, but not very well. I could grit through my fucking teeth, which hurt, but I still talked anyway because that's all you have to do. And the guy next to me, he was actually younger than me, and he was 18, and he was a tanker. And we could reach out and grab each other's hands. And I still had my hat, which had a big rip in it. And they would come in, and we had steel bars through our shoulder, and they turn them in order to keep the wound from turning to like your earlobes. Can you still hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And they would turn those, and they do first me, then him. And we'd hold each other's hands and try not to scream while the other one would be like, you've got this, you could do this, you've got it, it's okay. The worst part is they pause every 5 minutes to give you a couple seconds, and the nurse would look at you and go, you can scream, there's no shame in it. Which just makes it so there's no way you're going to scream. You're not going to, which to my shame, a few times I did. But that room, the Marine across from me, lost both legs, and they had to keep working on it. That some of the tissue went necrotic. He had surgery after surgery. It went from his shins to his knees to his mid thighs. And I can remember the look on his face when they took his knees. And just the look of, I can't fucking believe this. I'm 25 years old. I'm done. And, I remember at night you'd wake up and you'd hear all 6 of the heart monitors. And if it was 2:00, everybody's heartbeat is so slow. And you'd lay there and you'd stare at the ceiling. I can only see half the ceiling because my eyes covered, bandaged up. But I was in that room for 2 months. And during that time, 2 guys died. I dream about that night. I mean, it's 30 years later. I dream about that room. Now, the funny thing is when I got out of the hospital in June, 90 days later, I passed my PT test with 72 push-ups. I did the run in 12. I did the 2-mile run in 12 minutes, 30 odd seconds, and did 82 sit-ups. And so I thought I was fine, right? I think I'm fine. I'm great. Nothing wrong with me. I
You're a bad motherfucker.
Yeah, I was like, I am made of steel. Nothing could stop me. Whole time I'm in, vehicle wrecks, helicopter crash. Nothing could stop me. It was like I would bounce back from everything. I mean, I was in a 5-ton that rolled 3 times, threw me from the 5-ton. I hit a goddamn tree. It broke my arm, and that was it. I was like, can't stop me. But then I got out. I was eventually put out because of my injuries. If anybody here's ever been in front of a military medical board, they don't like to give you anything. I went for that medical board with a lawyer, my sergeant major, and my first sergeant. They looked at me and they said, all right. And he's got 3 stacks of folders and 5 stacks of x-rays. And he goes, all right, so what do you want? Stay in or get out? And I went, I want to stay in. And they all busted up laughing. And they went, why don't you go outside where we talk to your first sergeant, your lawyer? Lawyer comes back out and goes, why don't you come back in? They looked at me and goes, son, never give up, but know when to quit. We're not going to be responsible for your death. You're being separated from service. I still, believe it or not, I dream about that. I dream about everybody who was sitting there laughing at me. And because believe it or not, it was traumatic because it's the end of my life.
Yeah.
So a little time went on, a few other things happened. Got in a vehicle wreck, rolled it pretty bad. Got ejected from the car, was laying in the fucking ditch for like an hour. That was fun. Had some nutcase shoot at me at the fucking bank. That was great. But then one day I started getting twitchy. I started jumping at any sudden movement or sudden noises. And over the course of the next couple of years, I developed full-blown PTSD. I mean, we're talking, I think the mailman's out to get me. And then the psychosis started. And the worst thing about PTSD psychosis is it feeds on itself. And it doesn't help. My wife was a medic, and so she's got her own PTSD going, and we're feeding off of each other. And our whole thing is protect the kids, protect the kids. We once moved in the middle of the night because we were convinced there were people living in the walls that were trying to hurt our children. Left everything.
Whoa.
And that went on for a long time. And then finally in 2000, in the late early 2000s, they got me on, the VA were like, hey, we can treat PTSD now. And I was like, no, you can't. You let two of my uncles die in the woods of PTSD. You can't treat it. And they're like, just come in and get your goddamn pills. And it turned out they worked. And I'm telling you, the day they fully kicked in and worked, it was like I'd been underwater for too long and finally managed to breach the surface. It was like that first inhale when you've been underwater when you think you're going to drown, and everything cleared up. It took, 2 or 3 years. I still haven't repaired all my relationships that I blew apart. At least my daughters were like, well, yeah, Dad was crazy, but he always loved us and we came first. And PTSD, I dream about, I dream about that hospital room. I dream about the car crash. I dream about when my daughter wrecked her bicycle and her skull, you could see her skull and her face was a mask of blood and she's shuddering. I'd have nightmares about that. But yeah, they determined I had a bad case. But the best part was they determined I had this bad case, and they determined that my PTSD to military activities was not related to my time in military service. I actually have that letter still to this day. I have it framed because, yeah, okay.
Is this because they don't want to pay for it?
Yeah. It's the same as my Gulf War syndrome is not due to my service in the Persian Gulf. It's very common. They do that shit all the time. And you know what? It's been 20 years since I got out. I'm not going to do this anymore.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Can you clarify for some of the Zoomers and millennials in the audience what Gulf War syndrome is?
Gulf War syndrome has a myriad of symptoms. It's everything from you get rashes that start to peel your skin off. You suffer cluster headaches, severe migraines. You end up you can't hold down food. You end up with, you can't digest food correctly. Severe joint aches and swelling. You get weird purple spots on your limbs. Sexual dysfunction, either hypersexuality or impotence in both men and women. I've known a couple of women that have the hypersexuality one and it ruined their fucking lives. Shooting pains through your joints. Your kidneys act up and act all weird sometimes. You won't piss all day and you go in and piss and it looks like you're Frankenstein pissing because it's like this dark brown. And it's got a whole bunch of symptoms and nobody's been able to figure out what it was at all, ever. Because there's like 15, 20 symptoms and they don't know what caused it and they don't know how to treat it. But they're starting to admit to it now that 80% of the people who contracted it are dead.
Oh, thanks.
Same thing they did with Agent Orange, and same thing they're going to do to the War on Terror guys. You know what? You know when they're going to start awarding percentages for the burn pits? When 60% or more of them die. That's their metric. Anyway, so yeah, I got PTSD from a wide myriad of things, and I didn't get it from one shattering event like Ishii did. I got it stacked up over my entire life, over years, and multiple traumatic events. The nice thing is it made it so when there's a disaster that happens, I can just charge right in. I don't even feel anything.
So you get that emotional shutdown too, where you kind of go cold?
More. I describe it more as empty.
Yeah.
It's more of an emptiness for me. which has let me charge into multiple vehicle wrecks and pull people out. Let me run into a burning building once, drive my family out of a fucking forest fire, with just dead calm, which is a bad symptom. You're supposed to not have that.
Kat's witnessed me do that numerous times. You want to talk about how that happens?
Well, you talk about driving out of a forest fire. Ishii's house burnt down in the Cedar Fires of San Diego in 2003, and he was probably the calmest person on the entire block, except for the fire chief, whose house also burnt down on the same block.
But the downside is sure, I'm right in the crisis, but you give it a couple weeks and I'm a mess.
You melt down out of the blue like a week or two later.
Yeah.
Because your body goes, okay, we're safe. Let's let all that loose. And the next thing you know, you're hiding under the coffee table.
Literally, yes.
No, and yeah, that is the thing. Is it's that ability from as an outsider looking in, I've definitely witnessed that ability to just, okay, we've got shit we got to deal with right now. We don't have any time to deal with this emotion stuff. And then once the danger's passed, it seems like that's when it all lets loose. And there's no, it's like a broken faucet. Either it's off completely or it's everything.
Yeah.
Another thing I had noticed about post-traumatic stress is that your scale of things is completely screwed up from then on out.
Screwed. It is absolutely screwed. Everything from your pain response all the way up to you're fine. Some dude's shooting at you and you're standing there like, this guy quit fucking shooting? And then you go to get an ice cream at Costco and there's an odd number of sprinkles and you have a fucking meltdown.
Or you hear gunfire, cold as a cucumber, no problem. But
go to the range or a shit show.
Yeah.
Actually, I was going to say go to the grocery store and you hear the banging of a cart.
Jesus Christ. Banging pans, clanking of dishes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I actually have to wait till he is on the other side of the house before I do the dishes.
Oh, man. And, the media never gets it right. They always show when somebody has a flashback. They never show it right. Because if you have a flashback, you're completely locked up for that second because you're not just seeing it again. You're reliving it. Everything. Even your endocrine system is reliving it. Yeah, they never show it right.
The weird part for me was the most lucid flashback I recall, because I had a couple, but I don't remember them very well. The one I recall best, really being aware of it, was the outside world, the world I was seeing, did not change at all. But my perception and my reactions were of the moment I was being shot at, laid over top of it.
Oh, I hate that.
Yeah.
There's no reason, but it all kicked in.
Yeah, so somebody laying on the horde behind you suddenly becomes a threat.
Yeah.
And you're like hauling ass trying to get away from them. And
well, I also remember you spent a good 4 years not able to be out of doors once the sun went down.
Yeah.
That's not uncommon. I didn't eat lunch for 10 years.
Jesus.
Wow.
It was 10 years until I could eat lunch. And even now I'll skip lunch if I can. Because it just fucks with me. A lot of bad things happen during lunch. But they always show it on TV. Either it seems to be an excuse to act like an asshole. And that's not what happens.
No.
I mean, half the time the guys I know, they melt down, and if anything, they'd like to hide under their bed, or they want to get out of the situation any way they can. They want to stop the basically the sensor, whatever sensory it is. For me, it was giving me dream blockers. They actually have drugs where you don't dream, and they had to give those. Yeah, they had to give them to
that
me.
Doesn't exist.
I've got them sitting right on the shelf. Oh, they're dangerous as fuck.
Oh, okay. Well, then maybe I don't need them.
Yeah, you can only take them for like a week or two, and then you've got to go off them for 3 days. Otherwise, you have hallucinations.
No, I
Oh.
have chronic nightmares, and in the bad times, it's
Now get with
nightmares.
me, and I'll give you the name of it. It's experimental. You're gonna have to, you're gonna have to tell them that you can't sleep. But mine were bad enough they gave me hypersomnia, where I would stay up for 24 to 72 hours and then sleep for 12 hours and then get back up and do it again. And they had to stop that. And to do that, they had to stop me from dreaming.
Yeah.
Well, you kind of went through that too.
I've gone through that. Yeah, I've gone through that. Now, the asshole stuff, since you brought it up and how movies always portray it as just being an excuse to be an asshole, the more realistic side for myself, as far as that I have had those moments where I snap, but it's not like the movies show it. I mean, I think one of the worst times is I was having the noise was and the crowds were driving me nuts. And at one point I just said, can somebody shut that fucking kid up?
Yeah.
And the mom just turns around and just, you.
Well, also, I know for a fact you don't remember doing this. We've been in public and you've punched things.
I have?
Yeah. Where something set you off and you just turned around and punched the nearest thing. And I just went, okay, we're leaving.
I think the other really bad one was Comic-Con that one year with all the Twilight fans. And I'm trying to get out of the hall because we have had to deal. No, this is actually pretty funny. Working San Diego Comic-Con, oh my God, I had to like take it in 4-hour bursts and then leave or hide under the table and put my headphones on and just, cool down for an hour before I could come back.
Actually, we learned the best thing for him was to set up an area that he could hide under the table and take a nap, and that's how he would do that's how he does conventions now.
But
actually,
there was one where it was a really bad convention that it was overcrowded. I dealt with too many people at the booth who'd shown up and were just annoying. I was done. Kat had even said, okay, we're going outside for a bit, and you're taking me outside. And there's that line right across the middle of the hall because what's his name? Patterson was signing autographs.
Yeah, there was the Twilight panel in Hall H, and Patterson was going to be there.
And I pushed my way through the line to get on the other side, and this mom and her daughter are like, excuse me, this is the middle of the line. You have to go outside to get on the line. I just turned around. I don't give a flying fuck about Edward or your fucking Twilight shit. Get the fuck out of my way.
And it's like, yeah, it's time to leave.
Yeah. I self-medicated with alcohol. I was drunk. And I was, my biggest thing is I never hit my kids and I never yelled at them.
Good.
That was my biggest goal, and I managed to succeed at it. And it's funny because, my daughter's in therapy because of a couple of things that happened to her. And she said when she told her therapist that, my dad had severe PTSD and drank a lot, but he never yelled at us and never hit us, and he never, exposed us to violence. And she just stared, and she said her therapist just stared and said, that's impossible. And he was like, no. He used to go out with his friends and fight. We used to go out in the backyard and beat the shit out of each other.
That's actually a very healthy way to deal with it, strangely enough.
It is. It's weird. It really is. It gets rid of the adrenaline. It's just, and I was one of those cartoon characters always doing something stupid. But they never show it right in media. And, what I hate the most in media is I'm watching a movie and they have PTSD and they can't do something because it reminds them of what they once did. That caused the PTSD. That's not how it works.
No.
If anything, you become so hyper focused that a meteor could hit you and you wouldn't notice. You become all focused on that instant. It doesn't hit you until later.
Like I said, things that set me off are as simple as like a clanking of a plate or a sound or a smell.
Yeah.
And it's usually totally unrelated.
There was
mine, gasoline.
Hey.
Oh.
Yep, that's why I carry Vicks, because gasoline can set
put
me
it
off.
under your nose, that way you can't smell it.
So William hasn't said anything.
Sorry, William.
Oh yeah, I just you guys have these like intense, stories of assault and combat, and the people that I've worked with, it's more cruelty, neglect, um, sexual assault, things like that.
Well,
Um,
how does that differ then in the terms of post traumatic stress?
well, I don't really know how it differs in terms of what Mr. Bloodthorn was talking about, with how you react to certain things. Um, but I definitely, you see the behavior, and people develop all kinds of different coping mechanisms, self medication, all kinds of stuff like that.
Hypersexuality is big when you've been molested.
Yeah,
It's
and
huge.
it's really sad to see.
I will say one of the worst stories. I was in group therapy for about 2 years, and this one girl was in there. And she was quiet all the time. We're all talking about all this horrible stuff. And you had guys that just got back from the Battle of Fallujah, and we asked her one day, "Why don't you ever say anything?" She's like, "Well, your stories are terrible. I don't want to burden you with ours." And we're like, "You know what? Next time we're not going to say anything, and you go ahead and speak." Most of us went out in the parking lot and cried when she was done. I mean, we're talking, one of these guys looks like he looks like your stereotypical biker, covered in tats, big, huge, burly guy. He was like, "Hey, I can't drive. Can you drive me to church?" Her story was so terrible, it made me want to kill myself.
Oh, Jesus.
And she thought, it doesn't match up. And the guy I'm driving to church goes, I'd rather go back to Fallujah every day for the rest of my life than ever have to deal with any of what she dealt with, ever. He was like, just fucking kill me. And so don't think just because, yours doesn't match up, the comment and everything, that it didn't actually affect you. It did. And too many people don't realize that. They think it's some kind of contest or whoever's got the
Mm-hmm.
worst. And it's not, you know how the worst PTSD in our group, that all of us, would sit next to her and like kind of make sure she could touch us. She woke up in the middle of the night because she thought something was wrong, and she went in and her baby was dead.
Oh,
That
jeez.
that shit. When she told us that story, every vet there was like, wiping their eyes and stuff, looking away and wiping their eyes, because I can't imagine that. Fuck that. That's the kind of thing that breaks people. She was like, "Oh, you guys have horrible things," and like she was only 6 months old, and it all came out, and it was like, "No, just kill us." So don't think that it's some kind of contest where
No.
it's the worst thing that and I hate that they make it into a contest. They make it into one, and that's not right.
Mm-mm.
That's current. That's weird that kind of started with the late millennials, didn't it?
Yeah.
It started on Tumblr.
Yeah, you're right. It
Yes.
started on Tumblr.
Well, that was when you put on your bio what your damage is. And it's like, you don't wave that in public. I mean, if you want to talk about it, that's up to you, but don't wave it like it's a badge of honor.
The only time I had ever encountered that before millennials ever was when you got into circles with hardcore leftists and commies and all the activists, and they
AA.
each had to list all their little specialties and all their disorders and how they suffered, as if it gave them cred. And usually any sane person would like, hey, you're a moron.
Alcoholics Anonymous was like that, which is why I
Really?
quit going. Yeah, I quit going. I couldn't take it.
I had to go to a couple of Alcoholics Anonymous meetings when I was like young, very young. Not for me, but and it's not something that's easy for a kid to listen to, for sure.
It always got me. It's like they never learned their lesson. And what's funny is when I went on the meds, I quit drinking. I haven't had a drink in over 10 years. But yeah, the media gets it wrong all the time. And you know what's funny is people are going to be like, no way. But I got to say, one of the best depictions in young adult literature of PTSD is the Hunger Games.
Really?
Have you ever gotten to the last part of the third book?
No.
I didn't get to the third book. I
can't
got
read
halfway
Hunger
through the
Games, I'm
second.
afraid. Yeah.
Do you know where she spends the majority of her time?
Under
Hiding
her bed?
in the closet under a bunch of blankets.
Oh, well, that makes
That
sense.
is the safest place in the world. I'm not ashamed to admit I've done that. I was 30 years old and did that one night.
Wow. I'm impressed that was in the books.
Yeah, she was a complete, at the end of the book, she was a complete wreck. She was absolutely broken. And I think that's why a lot of people, that never got to that, because they don't show it in the movies.
Mm-mm.
But I think a lot of people don't get it, that it showed that at the end of it, she's supposed to be some big hero, and both everybody who survived the Hunger Games were total wrecks. They were complete basket cases, which I thought was interesting. And then the movies came out and glossed over all of it because they don't know how to depict it. They want to depict it like Rambo. And the funny thing is, watching First Blood after suffering from it and going to the group meetings and everything, old John was at his happiest when he was living in that cave eating that pig. That was the happiest he was in the whole movie.
That scene where he's in the police office talking to Troutman,
Yeah.
and he breaks down. Like I've seen that movie maybe 20 times, and I lose it every single time that scene comes on.
Did you know they cut something out of it they shouldn't have?
What?
In the book that it's based off of, he's in Troutman's office and he looks up and he sees Troutman's Distinguished Service Cross, which is the second highest award for the military, and he sees that he reads it and sees that Troutman got it at Chosin Reservoir, and he goes, "That's a nice medal. That's a hell of a medal." And it offended Troutman because he thought Rambo was a hippie. And what Rambo was trying to do was he was trying to set up some kind of rapport, and it didn't work.
They should have kept that.
I need to read that.
It's a good book. It's a lot different than the movie. It's got a different ending.
The movie makes John a lot more sympathetic. He kills a lot less police officers in the movie.
Yeah.
Also, spoiler alert for a book that's kind of old. John Rambo dies at the end.
Yep. Troutman doesn't even say a word. He doesn't even step out. He just aims and shoots. And it's exactly what he told Troutman he'd do if he had to. Not Troutman, but it's exactly what he told, not Troutman, but the hell's the sheriff's name?
Rambo. Oh, I don't remember actually.
Yeah. But he did exactly like he told the sheriff he was going to do.
Great book, great movie. And one thing that I really like about First Blood is that it was one of the first really mainstream American action films to have a protagonist that was really struggling with something.
Yeah.
And you have stories like In the Heat of the Night or something where you're struggling with racism, or struggling against crime or drugs in Death Wish, but John Rambo struggles within more than he does without, and that's one of the reasons that I always really liked it.
Yeah, I like the book. We actually had to read the book when I was in high school. The English teacher made us read it. Kind of interesting. But yeah, they never get it right. I mean, it's very few books that get it right, and movies never do. And you know what? If I see one more movie where the guy is healed through the power of pussy, I'm going to lose my shit. Okay, I've had plenty of pussy, and it does not fix PTSD.
A good woman will help get you through, but it won't fix it.
She can help you through it. She can drag you out of the quicksand, but
sometimes you can make it worse, though.
The wrong one will make it much worse. And what a lot of people don't realize is PTSD can lead to a psychotic break.
Mm-hmm.
And once that happens, if you can't get pulled out of it, you're fucked. You're done. You're in the death spiral right there.
Well, let me tell you, I definitely had a crazy ex-girlfriend who liked me broken and tried to keep me there.
Yeah, that's bad.
You were having an episode, your appendix was about to explode, and she's there saying, well, tell me you love me first.
Jesus. No, I'm having a full-blown episode, and she's trying to get me to commit to marriage.
Oh, God.
Yeah. And I'm like, I'm in no state of mind to answer that, which I actually said.
Mm-hmm.
Since we've been talking quite a bit about experience, I thought I'd share a little bit of the writing to show how I've portrayed it. You guys don't mind?
No, you're telling me.
Just a few little bits to kind of give the audience an idea of how I portrayed it in Scars. Here's one small bit. Max goes stiff, frozen solid. The only visible motion is the churning of his lungs. With my head turned, we're almost nose to nose. His glassy eyes stare right through me. Then it hits me like a slap. I know that look. I've seen it. It's the one I see in the mirror at my worst. When the fear kills all logic and reason, and every rational thought falls dead like a butterfly waiting to be pinned. That is one description of what it feels like. And another one was me trying to explain the alienation that you can get. I give it a different reason in the book, but
Go back inside.
what's that?
I think it's a Ralts.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, that was on my end. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Okay. Another scene from Scars. Too much time in orbit makes an alien out of a man. It's an old spacer joke, one of the first and all too true. I have no idea how to talk to Earthers anymore. A waitress, a sales rep, a brother, what have you. All the faces I regularly see and eventually melt into that same goddamn blank stare. I'm not sure why I need a rat for a friend. No, I'm sure that's why I need a rat for a friend. I've spent so much time in the endless black. I don't know how to be human anymore. Now, I blame it on him being a spacer in the book, but no, it really is. You get so removed from regular humanity and the human condition, you don't know how to talk to people anymore, much less relate to them.
That's why you see vets usually only hang with vets after a while. They slowly but surely you literally can't understand civilians. When I got back to the world at the U.S.,
Yeah.
when I got back to the world, I literally didn't understand what was going on. I'd been gone for so long. Clothing styles had changed, music had changed, everything had changed. Nothing was like before I left for Europe. And I literally didn't know how to talk to people. I couldn't. I had no frame of reference for them. They're like, oh, I went to my job, and I did the cashier all day. What did you do? I went out and defused a artillery shell that landed in the wrong place. I spent 4 hours trying to figuring out if I'd get this wrong, it's someone else's problem. You can't. You have no frame of reference. You have no connection.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And it gets worse.
One more.
Okay.
The truth is, I haven't told Max fuck all about my past because I'm not ready to be honest with myself. That same dishonesty came to a head 4 months ago. 4 months ago, when I was wheeled into a trauma ward, my blood toxic with wine and pills. What I recall was unpleasant. Stomach pumping, blood replacement, tubes and needles jammed into my arms and orifices. At least that's how I remember it. The doctor said I had hallucinated for 3 days. When I finally came back down to earth and was able to form sentences once again, there came a very long and uncomfortable talk with a specialist, a woman from the company who worked for a woman who from the company I worked for exclusively for cases like mine. You're a wreck were her first words to me. No shit were mine. The diagnosis was about what I expected: post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, social anxiety, most probably suicidal. Strangely, alcoholism didn't make the list. You're not an addict, James, the specialist had told me. You're just self-medicating in the dumbest way possible. I'm giving you 2 options: enter a treatment program I prescribed, or enjoy an extended stay at one of the company's rehab facilities. I took the first option, and the first option was Max. So that's all been loosely based on life.
With my current series, Behold Humanity, it eventually gets into this huge interstellar war, which is pretty traumatic for a lot of people. I've got most of the characters have some form of PTSD. One of them I did. It's a little thing. It's kind of based on reality. One of the characters, his wife, is like, asked the house computer, where's my husband? Well, he's upstairs. And he goes up there and he's staring at the closet. And he's looking at his clothing and he's like, I can't find anything to wear. None of this is mine. I can't find my uniform. And he's not supposed to be in uniform. He's on medical leave. And she's like, why don't we go get you some clothing? Because he's looking at it and he can't see any clothing. He can't find it. And it ends up to the point where his wife looks up, living with somebody with PTSD. And in order to make him more comfortable, they build a cushion fort in the middle of the front room so he can curl up in there so he feels safe. And she sleeps in there with him and the kids because it was a way to deal with it. Somebody else is so broken she ends up going to a nunnery because she literally cannot function because she spent 8 years total playing Jason Voorhees to keep people who'd been driven mad by the precursor scream from hurting her family. so she can't function. There's a really gripping scene in one of the books. They're under time recursion, and the aliens are using the time recursion to harvest the population of the city over and over and over again.
Ooh.
And they're trying to stop it. And some of the Telkin Marines run out and they grab children, podlings, and a brood carrier who's the third sex, and they rush them back to the temporally stabilized foxhole. And they're all celebrating and everything. And then the temporal reset happens so they can harvest it again. And the brood carrier and the podlings dissolve in their hands. And, he's like, get mental health on that. And then he hears, you need to see this meme, sir. And he looks over, and it's a meme. And it's a Telkin standing there in his armor, and it says, when all is lost. And then the next one shows him hugging himself. You can always hug yourself. And the next one is a nuclear explosion. It says, and brighten everybody's day. Because if you activate all the suit functions, cross your arm, and hit eject, the power source explodes. So he's like, find out who sent that right now.
Wow.
Because, these guys are under tremendous stress. And he doesn't know if that's just graveyard humor or if that's somebody's about to go out. But, I deal with that. I've got people, a lot of the characters are scarred because it's an interstellar war that deals with weapons that can literally shoot through a building. And, sometimes they hit crowds. And, I've had people say, oh, you're just glamorizing war. And it's like, did you even read my stuff? So I've got to deal with it because the war has been going on for 6 years now. And some people started as like a janitor. Anyway.
Wow. Now, I'd like to point out to the audience that you're talking real consequences and real experiences with war, that it's not glorified or glamorized.
No, that's like there's a scene. The females are bigger than the males, and so they're more able to join the military for this species. And she won basically the Congressional Medal of Honor. And I didn't do the ceremony or anything like that. It's just, her being welcome to the unit. And then the next scene is the company commander going to the MP station. And he's like, okay, what happened? And they said, well, she was walking back drunk from the NCO club, and she saw the 1st Cavalry Division sign. And she got in an argument with it. And she was out there screaming at it and asking, how much blood does it want? How much blood does the horse need to drink? How much blood does the bridge need to be coated with? And some guys came down and tried to shut her up, so she stomped them. And that's actually based on something that happened.
Oh my God.
It wasn't me, thankfully. It was a friend of mine was stumbling back drunk from the enlisted club and got in an argument with the 1st Cavalry Division sign and then tried to punch it out.
Wow.
And here's the thing, you can't punch out a painting on a rock.
No.
You can give it your damnedest. And it's the way it was handled too. Is like, well, did you learn your lesson? Don't punch rocks. Yeah, okay, go back to work.
Raltz, BGC wants to know which of your stories this is in.
It's not in any of the books. That the parts I was talking about aren't in any of the books. That's in like chapters past 500. Currently, I think the last book ends at chapter 202. So there's about 2 million words left to go.
So you've written it, but it's not published yet.
Right. It's available for free because life is tough, times are hard, and none of us got a Christmas card. You can read the extremely rough drafts on Reddit or Royal Road. You just look for First Contact. There'll be hundreds of chapters. And yes, it starts out goofy and lighthearted, but wars never start out with everybody being grim. There's always lead up to them. Things happen to get there.
Well, I think the other thing is your stories do go into a really grim, dark direction, but they're so packed with these bizarre and really, really just out of nowhere ideas. And you make them work somehow. I mean, you talk about them out loud and it sounds absurdist, but
Yeah, if I explain that one of the most effective things that the Confederate military used against the autonomous war machines was basically carriers that carried biplanes that had anime girls on them, and the anime girls in their biplanes would hide out in the rings of a gas giant and wait for the autonomous war machine, which is the size of Australia, to move up to the gas giant to repair or refuel or take on more mass, and they come swooping out of the rings. Sounds completely ridiculous.
Yeah.
But when you read it, it matches. It matches completely. Everybody's like, I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you make it work. It shouldn't, but it does. And a lot of it is from just a lot of people who've never been out don't realize how stupid you are in the combat zones. You're so goddamn dumb. I mean, and somebody asked me once, oh, in the story, it seems like people are just drawing dicks on everything. It's like, you've never been around the military base, have you?
Well, I mean, do you remember that whole period during the war where the recent one where you had soldiers doing TikTok videos in the middle of gunfights?
Yeah.
Where they're doing lip syncs?
Yeah. You do dumb stuff because you become a nerd to the violence, and it's just like it's no different than traffic, and it's really weird. And then the funny thing is there's a line from Full Metal Jacket that nobody really understands. Remember when they were introducing Animal Mother, Alec Baldwin's character?
Yeah.
And they say, oh, he's a great guy as long as someone follows him around for the rest of his life and throws grenades at him.
Oh,
that's
no,
only half a joke. He's a great guy as long as somebody's throwing grenades at him.
The thing that got me was, the thing that made me aware that I had post-traumatic stress, because I didn't even really figure it out, was on our first book, Utopia, it's the second story. Mm-hmm. I chose to do a story about a soldier going through post-traumatic stress, and I won't get into the details exactly, but really the overall theme was that in a war zone, he was a functional, normal human being, because that was how he was wired from then on out. He didn't belong back in civilized society. In civilized society, he was insane.
Yeah. Both my uncles never left Vietnam. It didn't matter that they, one was teaching college.
But
they never left.
And the thing was, I didn't figure out I had post-traumatic stress until I was studying the topic and reading all these accounts from soldiers about what it's like. And it's like, oh, fuck. I've got all these symptoms.
I know. I knew somebody that kind of got what you did.
Yeah.
They thought they were free and clear, and one last round managed to come through the back window of the vehicle and hit him in the upper back.
Yeah.
And he said that's what gave him PTSD, not what happened a year prior when the dude shot him face to face at about 50 feet. He said it's because he thought they were safe. He thought they'd gotten away. He thought they managed to break out of the ambush, and instead he gets hit by the last bullet. And he said it was worse. He said it was a lot worse.
God, I wonder what it would have been like if I actually saw it coming. Yeah, never know. That's interesting. So do we want to call it a night?
We can call it a night if you'd like. I'm going to be up for a while.
Okay.
And my wife's giving me the signal. I got the eyes.
Oh, okay.
No, it's cool. I can keep going. It's just...
I'd love to bring you guys on again. I mean, we'd like to have revolving guests for this where we bring you back regularly.
That's cool.
So it isn't just...
I'm sorry I talked so much and you didn't really seem to get to say much.
Oh no, it's no problem. I was mostly listening to you guys, to be honest.
Do you want to come back next week?
Yeah.
Totally.
We can have part 2?
We could. No,
yeah.
Hastings, would you like to start coming back again regularly?
Yeah, maybe semi-regularly.
Okay. I'll just start including you on all the emails then.
Okay.
And you can drop in when you like.
The funny thing is if you know your PTSD research, you know why all of a sudden I started doing all this insane, risky, crazy stuff when I was in garrison. Because I was trying to put my life in some semblance that I could understand. And if it was crazy and full of adrenaline and something I shouldn't be doing and ridiculous, well, that's right where I should be.
No, that actually makes perfect sense. That was your new normal.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
What broke?
You take care of it.
Sorry about that.
What the fuck did you guys do?
Our rats seem to have escaped.
Ah,
So sorry about that.
I don't have rats as pets because I live out in the country, and rats are out in the blackberry bushes where they belong.
Yeah, you have you have the live kind or
Yeah,
the wild
well,
kind.
the foxes eat them.
Oh, okay. Well, good
Yeah.
foxes.
We were actually we've all seen the it's spring, so you see the fox, you see the mothers with like anywhere from 3 to 6 kits just jogging across the lawn. Like,
Oh,
where are
how
you
cute.
going? They're hunting ducks.
They're hunting ducks.
Yeah, but
Yes.
yeah,
We probably need to call it a night. That was a protest for not being fed yet.
Oh, I thought they had been fed.
They hurled their bowl out of the cage and broke it.
Those things are organized.
Yeah, they are.
the rats
They
will
are
work
very,
together.
they will work together, and these little guys they are very clever, but they're like 5 or 7 year olds. They will throw temper tantrums. So I
Is
think
that
that's
old
what's
or
happening.
young for a rat?
They're middle aged actually. But their mentality is about like 5 to 7 year old for a human. So
Okay.
Oh, did they hear what happened?
yeah, they
Yeah.
did. Okay, so shall we go again for next week, part 2? We have
Yeah.
people in the chat who are asking for part 2.
Okay, we will do that. Yeah,
Okay.
there's glass all over the place.
Oh, is there? Okay.
Yes. So we're gonna have to call it a night.
Okay.
All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Before you go, quickly, if you enjoyed what I read and you're curious to know more, I was reading excerpts from my book Scars. It's a novella. It's I believe $2 on Kindle and $5 in hard copy. You guys want to promote your stuff?
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I have 2 books. One of them is The Crimson Spark, which is the one I've been talking about tonight. It's on Amazon, and it's also on Audible, read by the voice of Broly, Vic Mignogna. My second book, if you're in the mood for something a little more lighthearted, is Vatican Championship Wrestling, which is also on Amazon, and it is on Audible, read by Matt Raywalt, former professional wrestling talent, Aiden English from the WWE, and both of which are great performances, good stories, and I think you'd really like them. I have the sequels to both of them coming out later this year.
Cool. My stuff is on Amazon under Behold Humanity. There's a second series because there's 2.4 million words and you don't want to go through like 600 chapters looking for your favorite character. So the second series, called Tales of the Terran Confederacy, those are selected characters all in one volume. Like Pathok's, like the Pathok Chronicles just have what he did and how he affected his society and everything else. It's currently on book 5. Book 6 is in the last stages of editing and the last bit of the cover work being done. However, like I said, life is tough, times are hard, and nobody got a Christmas card. You could find my stuff on Reddit and Royal Road if you're broke, or if you've reached the end of book 5 and want to keep going. Because I wrote this for people to get through COVID and get through stressful times, and that is my intent. With the books, it's just to buy them if you want to have them on Kindle for easy reading, or you just want the hardbacks or softbacks. Feel free to read them on Reddit or Royal Road and just look for First Contact, Walt's Bloodthorn, and you're just going to pop right up. I'll warn you, I just wrote chapter 770. So, yeah, there's quite a bit. There's, like I said, 2.4 million words. You'll notice that at first you don't see a lot of characters repeating. That's because I'm setting the stage. I'm introducing you to them. I'm introducing you to the different characters, and eventually you will notice there is repeating characters over and over, and the war is told through those characters. And you don't see it. You see it very rarely from the human side, extremely rarely. 90% of it's from the aliens.
All right. And all of these are available on Amazon, everyone. So thank you for joining us. And we'll talk to you next week. I got glass to go clean up. Good night.